Good morning. Welcome to the Heritage Foundation. I'm Jim Carafano, and I oversee the foreign defense policy here at Heritage. So if you're like most Americans, you love Croatia because it's the little nation that could and came oh so close to winning. But it's a good prep for winning it next time. But if you're been involved in our programs over the year, you know that the U.S. Croatian relationship's actually quite deep and long. Heritage is one of the active supporters about helping make the case to bring Croatia into NATO, and the two countries have a strong and important relationship. And it's one of the things. It's okay to be cursed to live in interesting times. It's sometimes you're cursed to live in a very interesting part of the world. So Croatia is blessed in that it's a beautiful country in a beautiful part of the world and has splendid natural resources and terrific people, but they're also at the focal point of some of the most important geopolitics in the world today. So it's a small nation of great importance, and so to have the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign and European Affairs, Madam Pejčinović, Burić. That was the only thing I had to get right all day. It's just a great honor to have her here. Her resume is, I think it's really remarkable. You have a generation of European leaders really who have come into their fore since the end of the Cold War, and in many ways, she's an exceptional representation of that. She has tremendous experience in government and non-government organizations and academic, a long career in history and writing, and is a deep and knowledgeable expert, not just in the affairs of her own country, but in European affairs, and involved in European integration and Croatia's ascension into the European Union. So she's part of this incredible political class that has grown up embracing love and freedom and Western civilization, and in many ways, she's representative of this transformation of Europe after 1989. So to have her here today to talk about her country and its relationship with the United States and the world is a great privilege for us. So please join with me in welcoming Madam Minister.
Well, what to say, this was a tremendous introduction, dear Mr. Carafano. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a distinct and true pleasure to be here today with you at the Heritage Foundation. As you can see, or you may not know, I'm already part of it as I got this beautiful scarf, so I feel at home. From this very first moment, I entered this very remarkable house and very important think tank. So we have the privileged opportunity to share with you Croatia's views chiefly on our transatlantic relations. They are for us, Mr. Carafano mentioned it briefly, to start with a genuinely vital of strategic importance when it comes to our security and prosperity. And trust us, we know what security means since we are a young state. We have come a long way through with the Homeland War, with the blessed help of U.S. And so when we talk about security, we feel it. We don't know only that we know it, what that means to us. So this great help that was coming from the United States of America and from the Heritage Foundation and for many others from this great country was very important to us. So it is surely about our interests, but is so fundamentally about our shared values: freedom, democracy, solidarity, tolerance, compassion, tradition, and faith, forming our real cohesive tissue, intertwining mightily Europe and America. I'm also especially glad to be Mr. Carafano's guest today. In my turn, having Mr. Carafano as our dear guest and distinguished speaker at the Dubrovnik Forum just a couple of weeks back. And also, some of you might not know that what we call now Dubrovnik Forum, which was the 13th of its kind since we started. It started as a Croatia forum, and actually it was one of the major public diplomacy places where we started to publicly support our NATO membership or advocating for NATO membership. So for us, Dubrovnik Forum has a very special part in our public diplomacy. So thank you very, very much for valuable American input to our discussions. We just said we discussed various important issues for the Europe, transatlantic relations and the world today. And I'm very much looking forward. We are already preparing for Dubrovnik Forum for next year to see you or other guests from Heritage Foundation next year, and really to get insights and expertise that you do have here and cherish at this institution. Croatia, together with all American friends and allies, most sincerely wishes this great country to continue building from strength to strength. We wish the Heritage Foundation many future successes in this mission. We appreciate very much our fruitful partnership when it comes to promoting overall relations between the United States and Croatia, and we are looking forward to exploring all possible avenues of our future cooperation. We are very honored by your support and friendship, and by your dedicated advocacy of strengthening relations between the US and Croatia, including two important aspects. One, promoting the signing of a treaty of avoidance of double taxation, which we still do not have in place and which would be of tremendous help to both American and Croatian businesses. And secondly, by applying to US visa waiver program to Croatia. We are particularly glad to see how much we share a vision of a robust, strategic transatlantic alliance between Europe and North America, embodied most tangibly in the NATO. And this is exactly the main topic of my address. By addressing our contributions and ideas, I wish to re-emphasize the importance we attach and the commitment we have towards transatlanticism and the NATO alliance. In our view, both of them rest firmly upon a notion of a strong Europe and strong America, which are from their respective positions of strength able to mutually reinforce each other, ensuring the enduring security and prosperity of our citizens, societies, and states, and projecting them beyond our borders. Croatia, as a dedicated member of both NATO and the European Union, is a firm believer in Europe and America, acting in partnership and in concert. This is the crucial guiding idea of our foreign security and economic policy. We believe that in order to have that in place, we need a continuous, open, patient, sincere, and friendly Euro-American dialogue in all matters of our mutual interests. And these interests are almost innumerable. I cannot list them all, but let me just mention the most important one. And they encompass politics, security, defense, diplomacy, economy, trade, investments, entrepreneurship, science, innovation, technology, and culture. We are major priority partners and allies in all of these fields. Our relations, in addition to those with a community of like-minded global partners in other parts of the world, sharing the same values and interests, form the linchpin around which the stability and prosperity of the world revolves. Hence, our even increased responsibility to manage our alliance in the best and most efficient manner. In today's world, which is in considerable turmoil, in which we face an uncertain future, we as an alliance will be facing a full spectrum of threats, conventional and unconventional, which necessitates our joint responses. The US is by far our primary partner and natural partner when it comes to dealing with these threats, by using all the instruments, political, economic, and security, we have at our disposal. Over the years, more than 25 years of our diplomatic relations And today especially, we have been able to reinforce and energize many aspects of our relations, notably in the fields of defense, law enforcement, and intelligence cooperation. The sensitive national security character of this cooperation demonstrates clearly the depth of trust we have in each other. From its part, Croatia has been making, and it will continue to make, as much and as long as it is necessary, its robust contribution when it comes to our joint allied collective defense effort, responding to any contingency that may happen. We are deploying combat units, altogether more than 250 soldiers, to 2 NATO enhanced forward presence multinational battle groups, one led by Germany in Lithuania and the other led by the United States in Poland. These are highly capable and efficient units. Croatia has been prominently engaged, and it remains engaged, in many international peace support and stabilization operations under NATO, EU, and UN auspices, on land, the air, and at sea. Most notably, our forces have been operating for 15 years in various highly demanding capacities in stabilization efforts in Afghanistan. Today, we have a contingent of more than 100 soldiers still deployed in that country, also integrating additional soldiers from our regional partner countries into our contingent. Croatia participates in a wide range of counter-terrorism, arms control, and non-proliferation efforts, here again having the United States as its leading partner. Moreover, we have reiterated our commitment to spend 2% of GDP on defense by 2024. We know it is just and necessary to have equitable allied burden sharing. A full scope of our defense modernization entails an acquisition of Western weapon systems. Most recently, we have decided to acquire a squadron of F-16s from Israel, opening up a new level of military cooperation with Israel, the US, and other allies. Given our geostrategic position, it is only natural that Croatia assumes a special role in promoting stability, reconciliation, and good neighborliness in our immediate southeastern neighborhood. Most recently, the region has been exposed to destabilizing waves of migration. Our neighborhood is still burdened by some unresolved issues and residual disputes from the past. It requires our continuous vigilance and attention. And it is here in this region that the US has been investing major stabilization efforts, and where the transatlantic link has again proven to be a potent ingredient of security and prosperity. We see our particular role in supporting other countries in the region in the ambitions to join the European Union and NATO on their own merits and by fulfilling all required political, economic, social, legal, and security standards. We have been able to experience ourselves the benefits of the European Union and NATO accession processes and membership, stimulating many necessary reforms of the state, economy, and society, and we firmly believe that the committed pursuit of these reforms, followed by membership in the EU and NATO, is the best way to ensure durable stabilization of this region. We have also seen what a wide-ranging success NATO and EU enlargement has been. We have been working closely with the United States and other partners to attain such an outcome. It remains one of our foreign and security policy priorities, a mission to accomplish not without difficulties. Croatia thus sees many promising opportunities, practically necessities, to solidify and enhance transatlantic value and nature of both European and American policies. NATO remains the fundamental proven vehicle for that. with its unique transformational ability to enabling it to keep adjusting itself to different and varying threats, challenges, and opportunities, responding to them as they arise in pursuit and defense of our values and interests. There are also a variety of challenges, internal and external, facing us all along the way, some of them testing our unity and joint action, or aiming to erode our cohesion and determination. We feel that it is simply far too much at stake here to allow anything to undermine our strategic alliance. Within our societies, as well as among ourselves, we have to pursue an open, honest, transparent, and competent dialogue on all matters which need to be discussed and agreed upon in order to ensure our standing together wherever and whenever it matters. From its part, Croatia remains committed in doing its best to keep making its tangible contribution to our alliance in the shape of its engagement in a constructive discussion over its best possible functioning when it comes to defense, deterrence, and international cooperation in its political, security, and military contribution, as well as in its pledge to ensure an equal burden sharing. So this will be all for my introductory part, and I look forward to interaction and your questions if you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think we have a few guys here with microphones. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and please wait for the microphone to come to you. And then if you just briefly state your name and affiliation and your question, that would be great. I'm going to put Terry on the spot though, because one of the issues that we have a lot that on front and center is the transatlantic trade relationship, and there's a saying that when the elephants fight, it's the grass that gets trampled. Not that Croatia is grass, but you guys are in the middle of all this. So let me ask Terry to lead off the first question.
Thank you. It's Terry Miller with the Heritage Foundation. Madam Prime Minister, when the United States and Europe have now come to a sort of ceasefire, I guess, in the rising level of tensions relating to trade, and the potential is still there for some pretty severe disruption between trade flows between America and Europe across the Atlantic. And I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about the internal discussions within the European Union about how best to respond to what has now seen to be a more aggressive U.S. posture in terms of defending our own trade interests.
Well, thank you very much. So you finished with one of the points of little disagreements that we have lately. Internally, trade is an important policy. Actually, trade is one of the common policies of the European Union. So that's where we act very much together, like unlike in some other matters. So when these questions were raised, we were really internally very much concerned about possibility to introduce new tariffs on which was first announced on aluminium and steel, and then probably on some other issues. And I must say, internally, when we discussed it, we were wondering whether that will really happen because of this transatlantic trade that is so important to both sides of the Atlantic. We believe is mutually beneficial to have it without tariffs, but of course work together on the areas where one side feels it's unfair, or we should see how it is it arranged, because when you pick up certain parts of the trade, then certainly the picture is one, and when you take it all, then you have probably more thorough pictures. So we were very much concerned when we first, as the trade is within also my portfolio in our share in the government. So yes, we discuss it very thoroughly. We were hoping the trade tariffs will not be introduced. They are at the moment. But I think a good thing is that President Trump and President of the European Commission, Juncker, met in July. And I think that was a very good meeting that was really putting the light to the benefits both sides could have out of that. And I think the result of the meeting was that the trade tariffs were not introduced to other parts. On European Union side, as you know, as of the 1st of June, these tariffs were introduced on European Union. So for aluminum and steel, we reciprocate. I think that's just normal. You know, everyone, we have shared values, but we have also, each one of us has its own interest. I think that's fair to have interest and to protect them. So we reciprocated on number of issues where we thought would be reciprocal to what we suffer, and I think it's according to WTO rules acceptable that you can compensate for the loss you have. But we believe in the European Union, but also I can speak now on behalf of Croatia, that the good direction would be that we really have a dialogue as long as we need and thorough to discuss every single detail and to see the win-win situation. We are sure that we can find a way to have a win-win for both sides. You know that United States is also questioning the WTO as a multilateral organism. In European Union and in Croatia, we fully support multilateralism. We believe in today's world this is one of the ways to protect the rule-based order. And we believe that without a functioning multilateralism, we will find ourselves in chaos, in a surrounding which is by multiplying by different threats. So we believe in multilateralism, but we also can understand that probably some arrangements could be made better fit for purpose. So I think it's good also to have a dialogue on that and to see, because without clear rules for everyone who participates, for instance, in WTO, I fear we will find ourselves in a chaos in the international trade. So I think we need international trade. European Union and the US made a larger part of GDP of the world, made a larger part of the international trade. And I think it's of our utmost interest on both sides of the US and of the European Union to find a way to have a solutions that would be win-win for both sides. So we hope that our teams, I know that on European Union side is Commissioner Malmström, and also from US side there is a negotiator, that the teams are working, and I think they really need to work out what the two presidents, President Trump and President of the Commission, Juncker, agreed in July. I think that was crucial, that meeting actually, where really they found a way to decide on more dialogue, on not putting new tariffs, and on finding a way to the benefit of both sides. Thank you.
So, Anthony, you recently wrote a piece on the tax.
Well, welcome to the Heritage Foundation, Madam Minister. I'm Anthony Kim with the Heritage Foundation. Not too long ago, Jim and I, we actually had a great visit to Zagreb as well. And actually, thanks to Lara and your capable ambassador in Washington. So thanks to them as well. We had a number of good meetings, including with the energy minister and both Croatian Chamber of Commerce and AmCham. Now, if I may, Madam Minister, it's a bit of a long-term question. 2020 is a very important year for Croatia, not because United States, we're going to have another presidential election. 2020 is Croatia's EU presidency. And when you take up that presidency, it takes time in terms of driving and formulating your policy ideas and whole presidency. So next year will be also important. In terms of your priority, domestic economic priority, I ask that question because not anymore, it seems to us, foreign policy cannot be formulated without strong domestic economic policies. So on that note, could you let us know, or from your perspective, what kind of priorities you would like to pursue in terms of your domestic agenda, energy or some other economic reforms, as much as you can share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for raising flagging this issue of Croatia first ever presidency of the Council of the European Union. It's really a great task, and for the country of our size, you know, the presidency has the main task no matter who runs the European Union, Germany or Croatia or Luxembourg. So, so you do need to deploy much more smartly your forces in order to run that presidency. We are preparing for that very thoroughly. And you rightly pointed out that, yes, strong domestic policies are interlinked with the foreign policies and trade policies and all of that. However, you know, the priorities for the 6-month presidency are to be agreed partly on, you know, proposal on our side, and partly and quite a bit influenced by what are the priorities, general priorities of the European Union. But let me remind what will be the landscape, institutional landscape and political landscape at 1st of January 2020. So we will have a new elected European Parliament. We will have a new Commission, hopefully, should be by November 2019. I'm not sure we will agree of a new multi-annual financial framework, which is a phrase for European budget, actually, which, as you may know, as any budget anywhere, is hard to agree on priorities and on the overall size. And of course, there will be a time where, for a while, European Union will, for the first time ever in its history, decrease in numbers. So we will be 27 and not 28, as Brexit, in one way or the other, will take place on the 29th of March next year. So actually, the landscape is quite new. We expect a new shape of the European Parliament. You know that European Parliament has grown in its policy-making part. It's a very important co-decision maker in European policies. So actually that would be a very pretty unknown territory, what we are heading to right now. And second thing linked with the priorities, there is a trio. There are always trios that you work with. Our trio and first meeting we had yesterday in Zagreb is Finland, Romania, and Croatia. So actually, all of these things streamline your priorities. However, we have already decided that there will be certainly 2-3 priorities where we will focus our forces. One of them is absolutely growth for economic growth. We think that's very important and topical for all European Union member states. In our case, we are severely hit by the fact that a lot of people are going, because there is a free movement, complete free movement, or almost complete. Only Austria has not opened the borders for Croatian workers. So as Croatian, you can work in any of the 26 member states. Just go there and find a job and you are there. So no special requirements. And that made a lot of competent people leaving for better salaries in different countries. So for us, it's a huge issue domestically, how to harness this issue of, how would you plan your growth without a workforce? How would you plan your growth without young generations and competent people? So we certainly will have put youth employment as one of the important policies on that. And last, not really probably linked with the economy, but more with the politics, is enlargement. We truly believe that for our surrounding and having in mind our own experience, very difficult one, is that only the European Union and NATO membership, not all our neighbors that aim for European Union membership also aim for NATO. Some of them clearly for the time being are not interested. but we will see what happens in the future. We believe that this framework is only guarantee to stability and prosperity in that part of the world. So we firmly will support all the country is preparing. And at this point, I would like to mention, I briefly probably touch it upon in my speech, you know, I've been very much involved in this transitional integrational activities of Croatia through different means, through our NGOs in the 90s and through the government and parliament in 2000s, and then as a private European policy expert later on, so, and now again in the government. And I can tell you that for Croatia, this was crucial in transformational way, that we have been put in a kind of streamline what to do, because we were to do in Croatia at the same time state building, homeland war at the beginning, and then after the homeland war for the recovery and everything it takes, our transition, economic and political, and integrational. And if I look at back, you know, we are only 27 years independent state. I think we made a terrible journey, really, and huge journey from where we started from and where we are now. For instance, if you take what would have happened if Croatia was to peacefully depart from former Yugoslavia, then we would have put all our energy into transition and into economic growth. And we recovered our GDP from 1990 only in 2004, where the 10 countries of former Eastern Bloc were joining European Union. So imagine how much time and how much we lost in those years where we were, well, we didn't lose, we gained our independence, freedom, and the state, which is huge and has no price. But in terms of economic third of the country and infrastructure third was occupied, then third of the infrastructure was destroyed, a lot of housing was destroyed. So, and we financed mainly by ourselves, for instance, housing almost by 98%, not counting all others. So in fact, we, through our own experience in that short period of time, we made a tremendous I think, leap. We started with our really serious NATO and EU, our accession process somewhere at 2003, 2004. And you know, we became member of the NATO in 2009 and member of the European Union in 2013. And Croatia has changed tremendously, you know. And for us, our experience was that this transformation of the country, this path, was probably most important than the actual membership, because through that we were, you know, having support both in NATO and in EU. We were having also financial support, but mainly, you know, support in political terms and support in streamlining our policies. And we have transformed our countries, absolutely. You know, when you are part of it, you don't feel it so much, but when you look at back, and you mentioned that you've been in Zagreb and probably some others here in this room also. If you come from time to time, you can really see a change. For instance, we are a great tourist country. And without this stability and security provided by these two important frameworks, I don't think we would be a top destination, or some of our cities like Zagreb, Zadar, and other were, you know, best places, best Christmas markets in Europe, and so on. So this is really important, and this is our message. I made it rather long, but just to tell you why we are so much supportive for the enlargement, to both open door policy for NATO and enlargement to the European Union, because we believe it's in the interest of global, if you take global security, regional security, in the interest of these countries, but in very much interest, if we are allowed to be selfish, and I think we should all, at least partly, we are also, this is in interest of Croatia. For instance, being a tourist country, you can imagine that even a possibility of a threat or something and we are still on a migratory route from Eastern Mediterranean, then of course the tourism will suffer as a service which largely counts on peace and stability, and people come to rest and not to have possible problems. So that's why we believe that it is our also not only our policy, but it's our duty to support enlargement for those countries, because this provides for transformation of the societies and transformation of economies. So this is, I don't know whether I completely answer your question. To the energy sector, this is very important. This is topical. We are part of those who voice the diversification of energy sources in Europe. For instance, in gas in Croatia, we have our production for the half what we need. But for the other half, we are dependent for the time being on one source, which is for the whole Europe more or less the same, which is from Russia. And I think we still, of course, will be buying gas, which is coming from Russia, but we need to have security of supply in order to keep this stability and security overall. So we have the project of LNG terminal in one of our islands, and we hope really that together with U.S., who was really supportive for that, and the European institutions who partly provided financing, that we will succeed in that. But the LNG in Croatia is not only for Croatia, because it's larger than what we need. It's certainly for the whole region and for Europe as a whole important. And I think this agreement that was partly done with the President Trump and President of the Commission on energy, buying more energy, buying more liquefied natural gas from United States of America. This is part of this policy, and I think this is the right approach, because we really need to diversify. Energy is the question of now and the time to come, because this is it is important to have proper infrastructure and proper functioning and proper linkage between the countries. In this moment, in the western part of Europe, this grid is much more diversified and much more deployed than in our part of the world. So within 3 Seas initiatives, which is also Croatia championing, we believe in building in energy, but in digital and transport sector, more interconnections from north to south and east to west. And I think this is the way how to develop our societies better and secure our interests.
So it's really interesting to hear you link together enlargement, energy, and economic growth, which are all components of building a more vibrant economy.
Yeah, 3E.
The 3 E's to go with the 3 C's. But I should have mentioned that Terry and Anthony together co-author the index that we do every year, the Index of Economic Freedom, where we grade every country in the world on their level of economic freedom. And it's been really interesting tracking Croatia's score over the years. So you have some very stiff regional competition for economic freedom. But conversely, when we look at the scores, there's tremendous dynamic opportunity for Croatia to grow in terms of economic, not just economic growth, but in regional integration and leadership. So we watch that very closely. I wanted to ask Mike to ask the question, because I don't know if he'll ask this question or not, but one of the things we talk about all the time is 2019 being a pivotal year for Europe. So if he doesn't ask you to make a prediction on the European elections, if you can work that into the answer, that'd be awesome.
Yes. What do you think is going to happen in the elections? Mike Gonzalez of the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think, in one of my previous speeches and one recent speeches, out of few challenges that the European Union faces, I think one of them is, to my mind, also this European Parliament election. Our prediction is that it will be the most crucial elections for the European Parliament ever. You know that since 1979 is started to be elected by universal suffrage. It has been before European Parliament was just nominated, not elected. So since then, this probably will be the most crucial part, because all the pollings that we have been seeing say that the landscape in the European Parliament will change, and it will change in a way, apparently, as some national elections change the national parliaments. So they will be more populist there. There will be more anti-Europeans. For a long time, we thought that the champion of anti-European Union was Mr. Farage from UK, who actually, when he helped together with some others to win the Brexit, he lost completely. So he never gained the UK national elections, but on no vote against the European Union, he gained, and actually he was very important for the Brexit, on the referendum on UK leaving European Union. So we believe it will be a different place, the European Parliament. Croatia has at the moment 11 elected members of the European Parliament. In the next we'll have 12. And some of the polling I saw were saying that at least one, but up to 3, will be elected on the list of new wave politicians who are actually not so much pro-European integration. So out of 12, 3 would mean quarter, which is a lot. And actually, I think, I just talked to someone when we were coming over here on how difficult it was to agree on the wording at the General Council meeting in July on our Albania and Macedonia possibility to start negotiations next year. And I will not mention the country, but I will just tell you that basically we were all on one camp, except one very firmly against giving a proper and direct wording of opening negotiations next year for these 2 countries. Then there were 2.5 at the end, but we were by large majority voicing for the reforms of and some huge breakthroughs like Macedonia with the name issue with Greece. We were voicing very much that you need to show that when the country really goes and deploys all it can, or even more than that, that we need to show that it pays off, and that there is something that these countries are wishing for. We were discussing informally, because the meeting at the meeting we were, we need to be to agree on these things. This is an area where we need to be all who are at the table for. So it was very, very difficult to work out for the wording that could be explained in Tirana and in Skopje, that we have given them actually green light, provided that next year, this time, they provide for more reforms, especially in the area of anti-corruption and fighting organized crime. So it's very, very difficult to agree on things when even when we know that it will be in a good benefit. And the only reason, or one of the main reasons for this one country that stood against this clear wording was the next parliamentary election for the European Parliament. So that shows you, and it's not a small country. So that shows by itself how important, how difficult, and how challenging this will be. So, of course, no one knows, with elections, the things can change the last night before elections. You know that. Everyone who is in politics knows that things can be really influenced by some major event can really change everything. But what the pollings are showing now, it will be it will be challenging for the mainstream parties to get the same number of votes that they have now. not to talk about more of that. And it will be a new environment. European Parliament has a lot of powers, co-decision powers in the European Union of today. And the work for us as a presidency, because part of the work of the presidency is to work with the European Parliament on the legislative proposals that are put by the Commission. So we will see what kind of partners we will have on the other side. But it will be a change. I think it will be a different place, more challenging. It will ask for all of us to engage more. Apparently, citizens are not very happy for the time being, or some of them. So that's why they vote for populist. And I think mainstream parties need to have a good answer to the citizens to secure them that we also safeguard their interest. And so there are big issues that we need to answer. I think one big issue is a migration. I think you know for that also in the United States. In Europe, we have been faced with a huge wave of migration in 2016. Never heard, never never seen in that, and no one can in Europe manage that if the number, because numbers are huge. For instance, talking about Eastern Mediterranean route in Turkey, there are at the moment, I think 4.6 million refugees, 3.5 from Syria and others from Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and others. Some also from Africa. There is a middle Mediterranean route where the come sub-Saharan Africans mainly through Libya, which is unstable, Mali and other places which are not in easy places to live still, and probably for the time being also that. So we are trying to harness migration on the route to the root causes, but this will show results. It's showing partly results, but will show only in the longer term. So, but people are there and will be coming there. So this is a huge issue because we need, as a European Union, we cherish the human rights and really for those, and I'm talking now about illegal immigration. Of course, there are some legal flows that we accept, but illegal immigration is a huge issue. For instance, it is said that only in Iran there are about 3 million refugees from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other countries in that part of the world who are just going around and no one knows when they enter, when they leave, when they are. Some of the countries in our surrounding have abolished visa with Iran, so immediately there are a lot of tourists coming. And so it's very complex, but I think what people are concerned about is how to respond to these illegal migrations and how to respond to big issues like employment, growth, and possibility to work and have a decent life. So I think as mainstream parties will need to answer these questions properly, and then the picture in the European Parliament will be more fit for developing further European Union.
So I would try to squeeze in 2 more questions. Sit down here and then over there, and then I think that'll happen.
Madam Prime Minister, thank you for a great talk and great answers. Very quickly, referring to the European parliamentary elections, what about Russian interference? In the past, Donald Tusk has talked about how Russia gave money to both the left and the right in previous parliamentary elections. What's your view on what the European Union is going to do to try to thwart that?
Do we take other or? Yeah, okay, thanks. Well, it is said that Russian influence in different countries, including some of the European institutions, probably most targeted one is the European Parliament, is there. I cannot testify because I was not member of the European Parliament, but from colleagues who were, they really say that you can see that. So I don't think you can counter that with any kind of legislative piece. We just need to raise awareness that this exists. Russia is having their interests, and they are very present, for instance, in our region. In some countries, not so much probably in Croatia, but in some of our countries in the surrounding very much present, and I don't think I need to underline that in this country. You know that there are parts of former Eastern Bloc where really Russia doesn't want neither NATO nor EU to come. So if those countries are labeling that they want one of or both, then certainly Russia is more active in these areas. So I think it's Russia is there. They are present. Some say that they have, through funding of some of the campaigns in UK, that they were also behind some of the groups that were pro-UK Leave camp. So I think we need just what we can do is to answer properly to our citizens in the way that they recognize what is good for them. Otherwise, I don't think we can have any kind of piece of legislation that can work out that there are not Russian influence there. For instance, in Croatia, they're not so much present in the political, but in economic sphere, they want, especially they label their interest in energy sector and in some other sectors. They are there, and they are also present on our market. So of course, they are present, but I think that with having this in mind, that you can work the best local policies and also international policies in order to counter if they are working against the interests. So difficult to predict how active there will be in European Parliament elections, but certainly they are in some countries more present than in others.
Ari Middleman with Keystone Strategy and Advocacy. Just a few moments ago, I'm reflecting. I used to live and work in Osijek 15 years ago, and annually, unfortunately not this year, I've gone back, and it is remarkable how far Croatia's gone. So to you and your colleagues, the Croatian people, svaka čast. To go from Russia, then I wanted to pivot to China. I don't think it would be a policy discussion in Washington without a mention of China. My understanding is that history and precedent has been set this past year in Croatia and in Europe with the Pejčinović Bridge. And then also Croatia partnering with Chinese uniformed police officers in Zagreb and Plitvice and Dubrovnik. So curious overall China's posture in the region and thoughts on the future of China in the region.
Thank you for mentioning China. China is a big, important player, especially economic player in the world. We are hosting next year China Plus 16. Summit in this year was in Bulgaria. This next year is in Croatia. So we believe that we need to have, China is a member of WTO for 10 years or more. So of course they can bid for any tender that you have, and that's how they got this Pejčinović Bridge, which actually will be the biggest funding from the European funds that Croatia has. It will be 375 million euros, so biggest ever infrastructural projects that would be financed through EU. And they were twice cheaper than the next one. That was a consortium of Turkey and Italy, and the next one, Austria and some others. So in fact, if you have a price, and it was not a dumping price, actually, because when we were preparing for, we wanted this, Pejčinović Bridge is bridging two parts of Croatia that are not linked by land. So for us is linking two parts of the country, and for European Union, two parts of the European Union. Our people in our beautiful Dubrovnik, for instance, cannot go to Zagreb, to the capital, without passing through Bosnia and Herzegovina with a passport, unless they fly. So for us, Pejčinović Bridge is much more than regular bridge, transport bridge. It's a bridging, it's a linking the country together, and that our aim for already 10 or 15 years was to build the bridge, but we were not able to finance the full scale of what is needed, not only the bridge, but also the infrastructure that is after and before the bridge. So which is also part of the package. So finally now, when we can, as a full member of the European Union, touch the huger amounts, we have that, and the China just was a good bidder. So we want to have a good bridge. We will keep an eye on that. And when we were preparing for that, we were asking for an expert to approximate what would be a fair price for the bridge. And actually, and it was not a Croatian firm that has done that, and that was the price was a little bit lower than what the Chinese offer finally that was accepted was there. So it's a free market. So that's for China building the bridge. And China is certainly very active in our part of the world, as everywhere, you know, for One Belt, One Road initiative. So they are really economically trying to get and financially in a way to helping these countries, but also building a very strong China. Of course, there might be concerns about that, but if you need funding, which we do, and all the countries in China plus 16 informal gathering, then of course you look at who is able and willing to come. But of course, in doing so, and in particularly in the European Union, is raising concerns about is really this a proper competition? Are the funding coming from you know, hidden ways through the state? Is it at the end of the day probably also dumping, you know, in a different way? So we are doing more and more, and I think within European Union this will be developed even more in the future, that we will develop more our legislation to what we call scan the investments coming not only from China but also from other sources that are not from the most modern and democratic parts of the world. So this will be the way to harness to address this issue that is of concern. But I think it's a legitimate if you have a good, fair deal, to get things done. So that's the way we approach it. But we know of the possibility that it can, if the amounts would be over big, then probably that could endanger in some way the sovereignty in some way. So we are very much watchful for that. But we are looking for a good funding, and we are looking to develop our countries, and that's why China plus 16 network works.
So before we wrap up, could I just ask you, you mentioned in your speech, but could you maybe just briefly discuss the two bilateral issues, the tax trade treaty and the visa waiver?
Yeah, sure, thanks. And thank you for raising that. I think for our bilateral relations, that are really two outstanding issues that would really be big game changer for our relations, which are already very good, very friendly, and that since our very independence. For trade and for investment, I think would be very beneficial for both for American and Croatian companies. Two ways to have avoidance, the agreement on avoidance of double taxation, because how things work now is that you are not in a fair competition because you get this double taxation, which really companies do not like. But I think the number of companies, American investments in Croatia is rising. We have one very important investment from IBM in Croatia. We have KKR. We hopefully will have LNG soon. So I think that the Department for Treasury will recognize that there is enough interest from American side into Croatian investment in Croatia in order to get this agreement done. On the other side, also Croatian companies are interested to invest in the United States, so that would be really beneficial. And usually, I think we are at the moment the only European Union member state that doesn't have that. I think taking into account our good relations and strategic alliance, That would be just a logical step forward. Thank you very much for the Heritage Foundation for supporting that. Someone mentioned American Chamber, Trade Chamber, AmCham, supporting that. Your very good ambassador to Croatia is also championing that. So I think we have now really a momentum and a lot of good energy and good people behind this. And I think that will be just beneficial for both. It's for big countries like U.S., it is the size matters, so it is important to have enough interest. But having in mind the size of our market, I think the interest from American companies is already quite high. So if we introduce this avoidance, this agreement, that would be developed further. For the visa waiver program, we are one of the 5 countries of the European Union that still need a visa. Yes, indeed, we have a little bit less tight rules for getting the visa, but still need a visa. I mean, if you can travel directly without a visa, then the exchange will be much greater than if you have a visa. So I think even and also helping the business communities to work more on both sides. I think visa waiver program would work for that. The main point for visa waiver program is to see how many denials of the visa you have. We are getting lesser and lesser numbers, but still didn't reach 3%, which is the threshold. We believe that having in mind that Croatia is really not a threat, security threat to U.S. and the size of the country and the strategic cooperation, that we might embark on the road to ease the visa regime, the getting visa, but heading to abolishing visa on this side. As we are members of the European Union, for if we were applying and if we would be obeying by the European Union legislation, we should have introduced on the side of the European Union visas for Americans. Of course, no one wants that. And since 2016, together with us are Cyprus, Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland. And among these countries, I think we are with the best record for the time being. And every year lowering these figures, so getting it right, I think, for the time being. And we are in what we call the trialogue with the European Commission, us and US. So we are trying to reach a solution for all of 5, but probably quicker and better for Croatia would be to get each one on its own merits. Because if we wait for all 5 of us to reach completely, I think that will take time. And for our exchange and for our relations would be very good to wait the visa waivers, especially having in mind that Croatia is really not a threat to the security of US. Thank you.
Thank you. And please join me in thanking